You've probably been scrolling through a dozen NAS options, wondering if you'll end up shelling out for a machine that sits half-filled, underutilized, or just doesn't play nice with the rest of your gear. That hesitation is real. No one wants to waste hard-earned cash on a server that looks impressive on paper but ends up being a headache in the day-to-day. I felt that same tug when I started looking at the Synology 8-bay RackStation RS1221 Link is in the description if you want to check the product details on Amazon. So let's walk through what you actually get when you bring this rack mount box into a multi-user environment, and whether its price tag matches the value you'll see in real-world use. First off, the RS1221 is designed for a rack, not a living room shelf. Its depth sits under 30 centimeters, which means it slides into a standard 19-inch rack without taking up too much front-to-back space. That matters if you already have a rack full of switches, servers, and backup appliances. The last thing you want is a bulky unit that forces you to reshuffle cables or compromise airflow. The chassis holds 8 3.5-inch drives, and because it ships diskless, you have the freedom to choose the exact mix of capacity, performance, and redundancy you need, but that also means an extra upfront cost for the drives themselves. If you're the kind of user who runs multiple virtual machines, hosts a handful of Docker containers, or lets a small team pull video files off a shared library, you'll appreciate the read speeds. The RS1221 can push up to 2,315 megabytes per second. In practice, that translates to almost instantaneous file access when you're pulling a 4K video clip from a RAID 5 volume, or when several engineers are cloning Git repositories at the same time. The write side, capped around 1,147 megabytes per second, is still fast enough that a batch of raw footage can be ingested without noticeable lag, which is something a lot of hobby-level NASes struggle with. One of the hidden trade-offs is the networking side. Out of the box, the unit comes with a 1 GBE port, which is fine for basic backup jobs but will quickly become a bottleneck if you're serving large media files to several workstations simultaneously. Synology anticipates this by offering PCI expansion cards, either SFP plus 4 fiber or a 10 GBE RJ45 card. Installing one of those upgrades can multiply your throughput by roughly 5 times, but it does add a cost and a tiny amount of heat to manage. In a well-ventilated rack, that's not an issue, but if you're cramming the box into a cramped enclosure, you'll want to keep an eye on temperature. Another practical strength is the built-in high availability (HA) feature. You can pair two RS1221 units together, and they'll mirror each other in real time. If one node fails, say a power glitch or a failed motherboard, the other picks up without a single client noticing. For a small business that can't afford extended downtime, that kind of seamless failover is worth the extra hardware expense. I've seen IT managers talk about how this eliminates the need for a separate backup server, because the HA pair essentially serves as its own live replica. On the software side, Synology's DiskStation Manager, DSM, is a big part of the value proposition. It's a polished, web-based OS that feels more like a consumer app store than a traditional server console. You can spin up a surveillance station for IP cameras, run a mail server, or set up automated snapshots for disaster recovery, all through intuitive menus. The learning curve is shallow enough that a tech-savvy home user could get started, but the depth is sufficient for an IT admin to script complex backup policies with the built-in tools. Now, who should actually consider buying this? If you run a creative studio that needs to serve high-resolution video files to multiple editors, the RS1221 gives you the bandwidth and reliability you need without forcing you into a full-blown enterprise storage array. It's also a solid fit for a small to medium business that wants a single device to host file shares, host virtual machines, and provide a backup target, all while keeping the hardware footprint tidy in a rack. For IT hobbyists who love building a home lab, the ability to experiment with HA clustering or to test 10 GBE networking makes it an attractive playground. On the flip side, if you're a solo home user who just wants a place to dump family photos and a couple of movies, this is probably overkill. The cost of the chassis plus the drives you'll have to buy will easily exceed the price of a consumer-grade NAS that offers 2-bay or 4-bay capacity, and you'll likely never tap into the multi-user performance or HA features. Likewise, if your budget is tight and you need to prioritize raw storage space over speed, a larger bay, lower-priced unit from a different brand might give you more terabytes for the same money, albeit at slower transfer rates. Let's talk about a couple of practical weaknesses that often get glossed over in marketing copy. First, because the unit is diskless, the total cost of ownership can be surprising.